Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, AI for Modern Marketing, Transforming Teams with Intelligent Agents. We're very excited to have you here with us for this exploration into how AI agents are revolutionizing marketing teams and empowering organizations to reach new heights. Now, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker, John Arnott, a leading voice in AI-driven marketing innovation. John is the CEO of C1M, a pioneer in AI marketing and business solutions, and the author of The AI Imperative and Content First Marketing, among other titles. With over 25 years of experience transforming marketing with cutting-edge technologies, John will share actionable insights to help your team thrive in this era of intelligent marketing agents. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Appreciate that warm introduction. Look forward to walking through this with you and discussing AI agents. So our conversation today is about agents. And you heard that term thrown around in many different ways. And so I'm going to clarify for you what an agent is. Now, Webster says an agent is a means or an instrument by which guiding intelligence achieves a result. And while that is true, you'll find that agents are much more comprehensive than what the Webster Dictionary is. Now, you might be wondering, is ChatGPT an agent? Is Copilot an agent? Well, those are really more assistants. They help you get things done. And as I take you through what agents are, you'll see that agents have more that they deliver. In fact, an agent is a software-based entity designed to autonomously perform specific tasks and functions by processing inputs, taking actions, and achieving goals. See, the thing what makes an agent different than an assistant or a copilot is autonomy. It operates without constant human intervention. The other thing that's important in differentiating an agent is oriented, meaning it is given a specific set of objectives, answering questions, automating workflows, and solving problems, and it works towards accomplishing those goals. Agents are adaptable in that they can learn over time. They can adjust their behavior based on feedback loops, new data, and experiences. And agents have the ability to reason and analyze and interpret information, data to make decisions. And lastly, the agents, they take actions. Maybe they execute a task, maybe they send a message, update a system, generate a response. But these 5 areas, these are what make up an agent. So when you're thinking about how an agent can help your organization, and you think about the tools you might use today, like ChatGPT or Claude, an agent is something more sophisticated than what you're currently doing. That being said, I will show you at the later part of this webinar how you can simulate what an agent does within ChatGPT. Now, there are layers of deployment when we think about agents. An agent by itself is an entity, but it fits within an ecosystem. And these layers are how the agent interacts with different systems and people. And the first is the workflow. So what you want to think of when I say a workflow here, I'm referring to a business process. An agent is just an element of a business process, and you already have business processes. Some of them are specific to departmental organizations like marketing processes, content creation, approval workflows. There might be other types of workflows, quality control checkpoints. These are various workflows that you already have in your organization, and an agent sits within a workflow. The agent itself can be used for many purposes. I already talked through the 5 elements of an agent. They can be used to do content generation, research and analysis. If you are an account-based marketing or account-based sales organization, an agent can do the research that a BDR might normally do for you. An agent can engage with customers, answer questions, whether those are support requests or pre-sales requests. And an agent can keep an eye on how things are performing and doing performance monitoring. Now, for an agent to do these things, an agent must have skills. And a skill, if you think of how a skill is the capability to do something. Now, that might be a single step, or that might be a multi-step action. Different from a business process, these might be the steps taken to do an activity. A skill might be understanding the brand voice. The skill might be adapting content or doing a data analysis. A skill might be the steps going from research to content creation to editorial and review. That's a multi-step skill. And a skill is something in the organization that is independent of the platform, the technology it uses, Those are tools. So when I have a skill and I think about a skill as a way of doing one or many steps supporting the agent's role, I have tools that it uses. And the most common tool and the tool that you will find within any agent is its knowledge base. Whether that's the enterprise knowledge base or a knowledge base specific to what the agent does, it's some form of knowledge base, typically stored as a vector database. But there are other tools. Think of your customer relationship management system, your CRM, or your content management systems. Maybe you use WordPress, and that's where you store your blog posts. That's a tool where you would publish content. Your analytics platforms are tools. Email and other messaging platforms, these are tools. So when you think about how you're rolling agents out into your organization, you think about your business processes, and agents support those business processes with a set of skills to do their tasks, and those skills have tools connected to them that are typically the software packages that you may already be using or the connectivity tools that you may already have in place. We're going to go through the foundation of an agent by talking through the anatomy, the knowledge base, content engineering, and public tools, and I'll walk through that in a little bit with real-life examples. But first, let's talk about the anatomy of an agent. I shared the 5 things that an agent does. Well, what is within an agent? Well, there are things that compose an agent. The first thing is the knowledge base. The knowledge base is essentially the heart of the agent. It's everything it needs to know to do its job in your organization. But there are other types of memory an agent has. Short-term memory is an example where the agent remembers recent interactions it's had, whether those are direct interactions with a chat interface or interactions it's had with other agents or with other systems. But an agent also has long-term memory. Think of long-term memory as how it learns. Think of long-term memory as a way to track feedback. Imagine you have an agent and its job is to write blog posts. And over time, when the agent does that, you give it feedback by telling it things it needs to change. The agent will store those change requests into long-term memory, and then it will aggregate that memory into its own learning so that the next time it creates a blog post, it has that knowledge. That's a key part of an agent's ability to learn and adapt over time. And there are some other areas. Access to tools, of course, is key, using the skills and tools that an agent has. The ability to reason and to be able to make decisions, whether that is decisions within the context of its own workflows or decisions in how to distribute work to other agents. That is what the reasoning engine does. And then lastly, it has to have a way to interact. So that's through communication platforms. An agent might interact through email, through Slack, through Teams, WhatsApp, through text messaging, or an agent might just be purely behind the scenes and it interacts through API calls with other agents. And that's the anatomy of an agent. The knowledge base, well, that's the heart of it. And the first knowledge base you want to start with is the knowledge base that is the collection of your company's authoritative content, right? So what you want to think about that is it's the content that describes your business. And we'll talk a bit about how to do the brand script in a future example. But I wanted you to think about this as the foundational knowledge that the agent needs to have about your business before it can do any of its other functions. A knowledge base is simply a database full of numbers. It's called a vector database. It's a mathematical representation of semantic meaning, and it uses that meaning and those numbers to compare and find knowledge within the knowledge base. Content must be structured in a way that it can be accessible and indexed, and I will talk a bit about that in a minute with content engineering, but also content needs to be complemented with metadata. It needs to be regularly updated, and it needs to be chunked in a way so that when it's represented by numbers, it's represented optimally. And some examples of knowledge base, of course, are brand voice, messaging frameworks, and some past content that you might use as examples for future content creation. So the knowledge base is the heart. The content engineering principles, well, they're the backbone of the knowledge base. Content engineering is the activity used to ensure that the content that you've created to train a knowledge base, whether that's HR documents or past proposals, whether that's documents for service technicians to use to install particular hardware, or it's policies and procedures, whatever that knowledge is, It has to follow content engineering principles before it's fed into a knowledge base. And there are three components to that. The first is eliminating contradictions. Contradictions are what cause language models to hallucinate. A contradiction might actually be an opposing piece of content, but a more common contradiction is stating something differently in many ways. An example would be if you uploaded 20 proposals and you wanted to use those proposals to teach an agent how to write proposals, and in each of those 20 proposals you had a different number of employees, that's a contradiction. The agent is not going to know how many employees you have because you trained it on different numbers. And much like if you gave that to a human, it won't know what to do with it. I like to say that you treat language models at the heart of the agent, you treat it like an intern with a master's or PhD degree in whatever it is that you want them to do, except that they have no work experience and they know nothing about your business. How would you train that? And how would you give them what they need to get proper outcomes? First thing you want to do is make sure anything you give them to teach them doesn't have any contradictions in it. The second thing, aspect of a content engineering principle is to remove any of the redundancies. A few redundancies in content over time is not a big deal. But if you're continually training the model on the same content, eventually you're going to overtrain it and emphasize that content. And that can be an issue over time because you may get biases in how it does its output. Another example of that would be related to proposals. Say you uploaded 20 proposals and all of them had the same opening paragraph. I'm now overtraining the model on that opening paragraph. Taking out that redundant content is one of the steps of content engineering that you need to do before training the knowledge base. And lastly, filling in the gaps. Well, how do you know what the gaps are? Well, sure, you'll have some idea of content that might be missing, but the best way to do that would be to take the content you have, feed that to a public model like ChatGPT or Claude, and then ask it to come up with the questions that one would ask on this category of content, and have it come up with like 50 questions. Then have a person on your team review all of those questions and determine, do we have content to answer all these? And if the answer is there are a few questions where we don't have content, that's a content gap. So then you have one of your writers, your content specialists, somebody either directly create the content or do it in conjunction with an AI writer, but create content to fill those gaps. And by applying these three principles, the content that you have to train the model is now complete, without contradictions or redundancies, and you'll find you'll get the best possible output from that knowledge base. Now, we're talking about agents here, and agents are something that you develop within your organization using your own knowledge bases and your own tools. However, we can simulate those using the public tools. And today I will use ChatGPT for that experience, but you can do this in ChatGPT or Claude, Gemini, or Copilot. But it's an easy way to iterate through the prompts and to create a proof of concept to help determine where your agent that you're building should go. It'll help you inform the designers and builders of those agents how you want them to work. And so we're going to walk through some examples in a little bit. Now, what elements of an agent map to different aspects of the public tools? So I talked about the memory of the agent, and I mentioned short-term memory and long-term memory. Well, in a public tool like ChatGPT, that's going to map to what's called the context window. You can think of the context window as this moving memory that remembers the last X number of words that's interacted with. Some large language models have shorter context windows in the 20 to 30,000 word range. Others have longer, 1.6 million words range. And eventually we will get to a point where this is not something that we measure, but now the context window is that area that holds your both short-term and long-term memory. And for a proof of concept, it's sufficiently large to do that. When you're simulating the knowledge base, I mentioned that would go into a vector database represented as numbers. Maybe that would be at Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. Well, when you're doing your proof of concept, you do that as an attachment. You'll take the Word documents, PDFs, or text files, spreadsheets, whatever you're using as your knowledge base, and you'll attach that. And we'll walk through that together. And then the skills are represented by the prompt. So you'll write a long form prompt that teaches the language model how to do the task that you want it to do using the knowledge base that you give it. So that's how we're going to simulate an agent using public tools like ChatGPT. So first we're going to do is the content engineering, and we're going to set up a knowledge base. And what we're going to do is we are going to create a brand script document. So a brand script document is something that came from a book called Story Brand by Donald Miller. And this document is a story. It's a narrative that talks about a company. The company, you have a customer, they have a problem, they can't solve it on their own. You're their trusted, authoritative guide. You've been there before, and you offer them a solution with a call to action. And if they go down one path, they have this success. And if they take another path, there might be some sort of failure. And this narrative is a methodology for aligning all the members on a team in the company's brand and voice. And we're going to do that. But to do that, you need to have some content. So we're going to treat the brand script as a piece of knowledge, but we're going to generate that from an interview. And I'm going to take you through the types of questions that will be in that interview. So for this example that I'm about to show you, we interviewed ourselves and talked about our own company and created a transcript. And by the way, if you want to get these questions, feel free to email info@c1m.ai in the bottom right-hand corner, or send a message through the Q&A, and we can send this out to you. But these are the types of questions that you would record yourself talking about your business. The first are all around the company background and identity, so that we understand more about how this company came about, and we get the real history of the company. This is very important for telling a brand story. And the second set of questions, well, they're about the customer and the value proposition. We get an idea of who you serve and what you do for them, why you're different from competitors, what are the benefits from working with you. The whole idea here is just to truly understand your market, who you serve, and what your solution is for your customers. The next section of the interview for the brand script is learning specifically about the services and solutions. So then we'll go through and you'll name each of the things that you do or deliver to your customers or clients, and the industries you serve, and how your solutions differ from other alternatives in your space. And then we'll move on to the brand voice. How do you want to sound? Do you want to sound like a big company? Do you want to sound like the local neighbor? Do you already have guidelines and a tone? What are your brand colors? What are some of the visual assets that you have? What are some of the competitor websites that you admire? What kind of imagery represents your brand? In this case, you're talking more about the actual brand identity that you already have, so that it's represented appropriately when new things are created for that brand. And then lastly, we want to understand what the calls to action are and what the goals are on your website. So for example, there are two types of calls to action. There are direct calls to action and indirect calls to action. And these calls to action serve different purposes on the site. A direct call to action is getting somebody to take action right then and there. An indirect call to action, or a transitional call to action, gets somebody to do a step first. And that might be they download something, or they fill out a form, or they take a quiz. Whereas a direct call to action might be to make a call or fill out a form. And so we learn this about your business. So now we have all of this, and we have it in a transcript. And then we can use this to create your brand script. And we're going to do that in a moment. But before I do that, I'm going to ask you a quick question. I'd like to ask you about which applications excite you the most for marketing. Is it about copywriting tailored to a brand voice, the automation of repetitive tasks, getting real-time insights, or is it all about lead generation and customer engagement? What excites you the most? Oh, great. Well, looks like a lot of you want lead generation. Okay, excellent. Oh, it's a shifting around. Now we're seeing more about automated tasks, and then pushing back to lead generation. So it's kind of a mix of all of the above, with a more of an emphasis on lead generation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shift over, and I am going to take you through doing the brand voice development. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this interview transcript, and then we are going to teach ChatGPT a skill, which is what we would normally put into an agent, to do the brand script. So we're going to go that right now. I'm going over to ChatGPT, and I'll change my layout so you can see a bigger screen. And so now we're in basic ChatGPT. So the first thing I'm going to do, which is kind of my normal routine here, so I'm going to create a new project. And that project will be the AI and marketing webinar. So now I have a new project and I have a starting point. Great. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I told you we took a transcript. So I'm going to add a file. I'm going to upload from my computer the transcript of a conversation, us talking about our company. And so now I have something that I've fed it, some knowledge. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I need to teach it a skill. So I'm going to teach it how to write a brand script. And I'm going to copy this in here, but I'll take you through what I'm doing so you can see. And so this is a prompt I've created. And back when we created brand scripts originally, what we had was a training document that we would give to our copywriters, and our copywriters would listen to the recording, and then using the training, they would go and create a brand script. And now what we've done is we've taken that training documentation and we've crystallized it into something shorter that is a prompt. And that prompt is how to create a brand script using the story brand method. So again, I'm teaching it a skill. And I take it through the steps that a copywriter would go through to do that exact same skill. And I walked through what it means to be a character, what that is and what I'm trying to extract, how I infer and identify the problem they have, and what types of problems they have. External problems, which means the actual problem, internal problems, which means how they feel about it, and philosophical problems, which related to right or wrong, which is there ought to be a solution, some way to help me here. And then we take them through the guide. Well, that's you, that's your business. And we put some bullets in here to extract more information about your business from that interview. And then we have the plan. Well, what's the plan? What's that plan to engage with you? And what is your call to action, that direct or potentially transitional or indirect call to action to avoid failure or result in success? And then the last thing we've added to this is we've added a section on the voice and tone of the brand. So while we're talking to this client in the interview, or while we're interviewing ourselves in this example, we're also pulling from that based on how we're communicating what our voice is. And then we give it an outline. So I have all these pieces in here. I've taught ChatGPT this skill, how to write a brand script, and I've given it a 45-minute long interview. And now what it's done is it is extracted from there. It finds out what the company target market is, and it looks for the types of problems that we mentioned, external, internal, and philosophical. And then it takes them through our promise, who we are, what we do, the type of descriptive words we're going to use. So this is something very useful for giving to writers and designers, who gives them the plan. And it extracted from this interview that we start with a discovery call. That's our standard way to begin an engagement. And what we'll give out of the discovery call is a roadmap that implements a strategy. And then we have our calls to action, schedule a free discovery call, but we also have a transitional call to action, scheduling what we do is a free competitor analysis. So we'll compare how an organization is doing against their competitors. And that's our transitional call to action. And then avoiding failure. Failure is kind of like, it's kind of like pepper. You just need a little bit of it. And resulting in success. And these are the positive outcomes of working with us. So I've created a brand script here purely by doing an interview, asking myself or ourselves a lot of questions, and then using that interview and then applying the brand script prompt to it. So now I have that. Great. So I have something that I can work with. So the next thing I want to do is I want to use that brand script to build a website. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start another chat here. I'm going to go into my ChatGPT, and I'm using my AI marketing webinar project, and I'm going to add a file to the project. And that file, well, that's the brand script we just created. So now I have that brand script. And so now I have this as a knowledge base. Back to the whole concept where an agent requires knowledge. That is what I'm giving to ChatGPT to simulate creating an agent. So now I have that file in there, and I am going to start with the beginnings of a website. So I'm going to say we're developing a new website for C1M, use the attached brand script, create a sitemap for this website. So it's going out there and it's going to look at that knowledge, and it's now going to create a sitemap. Of course, it knows how sitemaps are organized. It knows how companies like ours typically structure their website, and it's going to give me something useful to work off of. So now I have a starting point to work from, and the next step might be to create some copy. So back in the day when we would design websites, we would use fake text. It would say like lorem ipsum and that fake Latin type text. But now we don't have to do that. In fact, we can do the preliminary copy at this stage so that when we're designing a website, the copy is actually at a really good starting point. So for example, using the sitemap, I might say to it, write the copy for each page on the site. And so this is where ChatGPT is now looking at the attached brand script, and it's also reviewing the output that it created before and reflecting on it, and it's going to create some copy for each of the pages. And so this gives me something that's a useful starting point for the website, where I can give this now to a copywriter, and that copywriter can evolve it and make it better. Now, what's useful about using ChatGPT as opposed to say Claude is ChatGPT has access to the internet, meaning I can tell it to go look at a website and either get information from that website or compare things to that website. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take this website that it designed, and I'm going to compare it to our current one. And so I'm giving it a prompt here, and I'm saying review the current site located at c1m.ai. So go to our current website. And how does that site compare to the sitemap and copy that ChatGPT created? Are there areas that ChatGPT can improve? Are there areas that maybe the site needs improving? And so now it's taking, again, reflecting on the content that it just created, and then doing an analysis against another third party. And you can do this against other sites, right? So you could compare to competitors, not just yourselves. It also allows you to take a brand script that you created and compare it to your current site, and to tell you where your brand script and your site maybe diverge. Because sometimes when we do a brand script, we realize that the copy or content that was created on the website is not completely accurate and needs some updates. Another great way to use these tools to do that. So here it's giving me the current state, and it's telling me opportunities. So now I have a way for me to get a better idea of what we could tweak on the site. And then I can give this to a designer, or I can give this to a copywriter, and then they can go and enhance the website based on what ChatGPT just created for us. So this is something, while I'm simulating it in ChatGPT, you could have an agent do. You could have an agent, if you're developing this type of content for building websites, an agent help with the initial construction of the website. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to create some content here. And so this website, it's all fine and good, but now what we want to do is we want to create some blog posts for it. So I'm going to go into my project, and then you already have a brand script attached, so I don't need to attach it again. It's a part of the project. And I'm just going to say attach as a brand script for C1M. For this website, we're going to create blog posts on a regular basis. What are 5 blog post topics we should write? So again, using the brand script as its knowledge and using its ability to write, it's going to come up some blog post ideas. And some of these ideas might be really useful, right? So how AI is transforming digital marketing key trends for 2025. That's probably something worth writing. From data to insights, leveraging analytics. And so that might be something worth writing. So I've got a starting point here. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to continue the conversation going with ChatGPT. And I am going to take it to the next step and say, okay, great, thank you. Now, I'm one of those people. I thank ChatGPT. I have this belief that we should just always be polite, whether we're talking to another person or we're talking to an AI. Let's be polite. I also have this belief that over time, as we are constantly working with AIs, if we're polite, we might stop being polite with each other. So you'll notice that when I write my comments, I often say thank you to ChatGPT. And this is no exception there. So I'm asking ChatGPT to write 1,000 words on a topic, And so it's going to go create a blog post for me. Now, what you're going to see happening here is ChatGPT is changing its look. It now shifted into canvas mode. As a writer, writing is something that's very interactive, and you really want to have a tool that's not constantly rewriting. And that's what Canvas does for us. Canvas allows us to have a writing partner. And when ChatGPT goes into this mode, we can interact with it and have it help improve things for us interactively. So it's writing this blog post for it, and it's very nice. And it's supposed to be 1,000 words, and so it's really putting a lot of quote thought into it. And so we have this, and it tells me what it did. And now on the right side of the screen, you'll see this little pencil icon for suggested edits. And I can go and I can make it shorter or longer. I can adjust the reading level, make it more sophisticated or easier to read. I can add emojis to it if I want, or I can add a final polish. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to have it adjust the length, and I'm just going to make this thing. Let's see, I'll make it quite a bit shorter. Maybe I don't want 1,000 words. It's what I asked for, but maybe I wanted to rewrite it shorter. So what it'll do now is it'll edit it in place. As you see, it's actually scrolling through and changing each paragraph. It's essentially reflecting on what it created and changing it as it goes. And it's removing anything that it didn't need for making it shorter. And of course, you can do the same thing to make it longer. If you wanted to have it more comprehensive or more detailed in one area, you could start with 500 words and keep making it longer and longer until it meets what you need. But I made it shorter for this example. And then the last thing I might want to do is have it reflect on what it created. Now, this is something agents do, right? Agents have the ability to do multi-steps. So an agent can write something, and then an agent can have an editorial element that edits what it wrote, and it can even do that in a loop. And then it could even go further and do and check for accuracy, right? So write something, go to the internet, check for accuracy, do rewrites. That's reflecting on what it's created. Well, in ChatGPT, we can simulate that reflection with this add final polish, where ChatGPT will now reread everything it created, and then it will look for ways to clean it up, make it just a little bit better. And I can see how it is polishing it, making it a more comprehensive document. And now I have something that maybe I want to post. Maybe I have something that I'm done with it. And so then my next step is, well, I'm going to need to promote this. So maybe I would have an agent that wrote blogs like I'm doing right now, and that agent iterates and it creates a final output of the blog. Then that agent might hand off that final blog. It might hand off that blog to another agent, and that other agent might be the social media agent. So maybe that other agent now it has its own knowledge base of the brand script. It has its own knowledge base, about the company, but maybe has other knowledge about how this company likes to write social posts. And that might be another knowledge base. And then it's prompted to write social posts. So in here, what we'll do is we'll move outside of Canvas. So I'll close that. And now, based on that blog post that it created above, you see up here in Canvas, I now have some social posts, and it even puts the emojis in here, and it puts the hashtags in here, and I have a starting point now for my social posts that support the blog I created. And this is really handy when you're trying to get things done. But when you're building an agentic flow, you would think of this as the social agent that every time you feed it a blog, it's going to output potential social posts that you would use to promote that blog. So the next thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to move on to writing emails. So emails for marketing purposes are pretty significant amount of work for any organization. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my project, and I'm going to start a new one, and I am going to have it help me write some emails. So we're having a webinar right now, so I might as well have it help me write emails for a webinar. And imagine you would have an agent who's trained on your brand, who knows all about your content, your business, and its job is to write emails. That's its skill. And in this case, I'm going to simulate that agent. So we're planning to have a webinar teaching professionals how agents fit into digital marketing. We will show real world examples of ChatGPT that can be used as a proof of concept for agent design and development. Write a 3-email series promoting this webinar. Use the brand script to learn about C1M and our target market when running these emails. So now I have the ability to have it give me its first pass on creating these emails. And it gives me a subject line. It gives me that short header, right? So I've got my subject line, and I have the beginning of what would be show up in that email. And then I could see it's okay. It's okay. It's a decent email. There's some good things to it, but when I write emails for marketing, I like to have a place to click early on. I like my emails to have a quick call to action. That way, if somebody is looking at them on their phone, then there's somewhere for them to click easily. And these emails don't have that. So I'm going to have it help me here. And I'm just going to say these are good, but I prefer to have a link to click early in the promo email. Please update accordingly. And so what it's going to do now is it's going to rewrite these emails for me. And then it's got a place to click. So now I have something early on to click there. And it's giving me a register now, clicking here. And I could continue iterating with it. Again, back to it being my intern with a master's degree in digital marketing, but I still have to evolve it and teach it what I want to do. I can keep telling it how I want it to go. But in this case, I have something useful here. So now I have a 3-email series with calls to action in them and links, and now I can move forward with that. So these are some examples of how AI agents can be simulated using ChatGPT. And while this is something a small organization, might use a public tool like ChatGPT for, as you move to be an enterprise organization where you have AI agents within your organization supporting it, you're going to want to evolve away from using public tools in this very manual manner and into automated agents that can do these marketing activities for you. So we went through the brand voice development, we went through content creation, we talked about the website sitemap and copy, email sequences, social and blog content. And there's another aspect of it which I didn't share, which is you could also upload a series of products and have it help you write your product descriptions. And so that's how you can simulate agents, but I want you to think about where this is going. There are 2 things that are happening right now in digital marketing using agentic flows. And the first one is the evolution of email marketing from a purely templated based approach to a place where every single marketing email is unique. Imagine an agent that behaves like a business development rep, a BDR. And imagine that agent's first step is it does research about a company and research maybe about that person. Maybe it goes to Google, it does site:/linkedin.com and that person's name, and it finds their information about them in Google rather than going into LinkedIn through the API. And now it has some information about the company and the person. It knows about your company already. It has that knowledge. And it may have information about the sender. Maybe the person sending it is a BDR in your organization, and you have some knowledge about them. So it knows the combination of these two, and it combines those, and then it writes a custom email that says why we should get on a call and talk, because maybe it's an intro email. Or maybe you're having a webinar like this, and every email is unique, and it arrives to the person suggesting they attend the webinar and explains why based on the type of company they work for. That's what you should be looking towards in 2025 is agentic flows that do email marketing where everybody gets a specific email. Well, when you send all those unique emails out, you also have to manage the replies. And you're going to get the auto replies like the out of office, things like that. Those will happen. And what you can have is an AI agent that is sitting listening to the replies. And it will know the difference between an auto reply and a bad email address, like a bounce, right? It'll be able to tell that. But if you have an agent listening there too, and that agent is maybe a pre-sales agent, if somebody replies and answers a basic question, the agent can respond. And the agent can begin the conversation. And that conversation's goal for the agent would be to get that person emailing to schedule a discovery call, to have a conversation with a person. And so when you're thinking about your email marketing efforts, think about how you can do those two sides of it. One, unique emails to every person that you're emailing, and two, an agent that sits and listens to the responses to your marketing emails and converts them to the first step that you want them to take to interact with your company. And the second thing is the evolution of search engine optimization. We've been doing SEO for a decade. We've been using AI in SEO for 4 years now. We're moving towards a different type of search engine optimization. All the principles of SEO still apply, but we're evolving into answer engine optimization. And the real question is, how can I get visible on Perplexity? When I go to ChatGPT and I click that little globe icon and it turns blue and I do a search, how do I make sure my company or brand shows up there? That's answer engine optimization. And as marketers and marketing leaders, you need to be thinking about how you're going to show up in the answer engines. Because while the principles of SEO are the same, the amount of content and the way you structure that content and engineer that content is really important to get visibility there. And then the last thing are voice agents. And we have an experimental voice agent right now that talks all about our company if you ask it. And if you call the number on the screen, 214-382-0182, you call that number, you can have a conversation. Just ask it anything you want about our company. It's an experimental agent that we're working on right now. And its job is to answer your questions and encourage you to schedule a discovery call. So you can try that out and think about how things like that might benefit your company as those technologies continue to evolve. Marketing roles are changing. Okay, the role of writer has evolved to content specialists. The role of editor and content specialists has evolved to content engineers. There are different things that we didn't do before that we do now. You will have somebody that does content engineering because models have to be updated with continual knowledge. And you'll have that knowledge-based maintenance that you'll continually work with the content engineer. And then there's those ongoing feedback loops. So if an agent learns from feedback and it puts that in its long-term memory, what are the roles of the people in your organization to give that feedback? What makes them qualified to give that feedback? These are things that are changing and being added. So while some marketing roles will have less to do, those are shifting into new marketing roles that will have more to do, mostly around content and feedback. And the last thing I want you to think about when you're considering an agentic journey is the fact that this institutionalized knowledge becomes your intellectual property. The knowledge bases that you use, they may have started as Word documents, PDFs, but they become a knowledge base that is a part of your IP. And even more than that, the prompts that are used to get the most out of that knowledge base, whether it's teaching it a skill or how it analyzes some type of data, as those prompts evolve, those become part of your intellectual property. And so as you continue to build knowledge bases and as you grow your prompts by having different team members working together, you're going to want to move away from public tools where you're copying and pasting a prompt from a Word document into ChatGPT and institutionalizing that so that those prompts and that knowledge is sitting on a secure place behind your system so that when the people are doing their job, whether it's writing copy, analyzing a website, creating an email series, that they don't even have to see the prompts that go into it. They can just say, write a blog on this topic, not knowing all the details that is in the prompt behind it, because that becomes your company's intellectual property. So I'm hoping this is very helpful for you. We have a Q&A session right now, so if you have any questions you want to ask, please put them in the Q&A. I also encourage you that if you want to schedule a discovery call, you can take a picture of the QR code here, or just email info@c1m.ai, and we're happy to talk more about your business.
This concludes our webinar. So for John and our entire C1M team, we hope you have a great rest of your week.